Alright, a very warm welcome back to the channel. In today's video we are going to talk about the Takstar WPM-300, a wireless in-ear monitoring system. We are going to have a look at what this thing looks like, how it works, and I'm going to give you my opinion on it. For transparency, I have to say that Takstar provided this system for free. I'm not paid for the video though, so everything I say is fully my own opinion. Now before we get started, let's set the scene a bit. If you look at some of the more expensive retail systems like the Sennheiser systems or the Shure PSM-300, these sell for around 1,000 or 900 euros. If you look at the cheaper price spectrum, you would find maybe systems like LD system for 300 euros, 350, something like that. This system sells for, I found a lot of different prices. The official price I just saw was $120 US. 120 US dollars would roughly equate to something like 100, 110 euros, I believe. It's just calculated in my head, but something like that. So you can already start to see that this is a very cheap system. And when we look at this, we have to take this into account. It would be unfair to say it's not as good as the Sennheiser systems, because obviously it won't be. So the question today is more like, how much compromise do you make with a system like this? Does it have any serious problems? And is it a good budget alternative to some of the more expensive systems? All right, let's get started by having a quick look at the box. This is what it looks like. The inside is filled with foam, and it's made in a way that you can quickly pop everything in or out. I like when boxes are made like this because you can just quickly put it in and throw it in the back of your car and transport it that way. That's nice. You get a manual. This one is in Chinese and English. You get a regular 9-volt power adapter. You also get earbuds with a few exchangeable ear tips. The quality with these is what you would expect. They are obviously not very good. You can use them maybe as a spare or replacement, or if you don't have anything else yet, but I would not recommend using them for a long time or as your permanent solution. You get a body pack receiver, the transmitter unit, and a few cables and a headphone adapter. Now, what really struck me as soon as I opened the box is this transmitter unit, because this is just so incredibly small. I can just take my phone. This is a 6.7 inch pixel and hold it right next to it, and you can see it's about the same height. And also it's not a lot taller than my phone. So this doesn't even come close to your regular 9.5 inch rack system. It's also extremely light. The top is made with a piano black finish, and the sides and the bottom are matte. At the front you have a volume knob and a headphone jack directly on the system. I don't really know any scenario that would be useful for, to be honest, but it's there. And on the back side you have on-off switch, your DC power outlet, you have cinch or RCF connectors, a 3.5 millimeter connector, and a set button, and then you have a normal antenna that can be screwed on. Now let's talk a bit about some of the things that are noteworthy here. First of all, the audio input connectors. Now cinch or RCF connectors, and also the mini TRS plug. That's a really interesting choice of connectors, let's say it that way, because on your typical transmitter system like the Shure PSM-300 or LD systems, you would have regular size TRS connectors, or maybe even XLR connectors. And also if you think about mixer outputs or digital stage box outputs, you would probably never or almost never have Cinch connectors. So you will probably need adapter cables. Now you do get adapter cables like this one in the box, but still this doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. Maybe Takstar choose these connectors so they would be able to make this transmitter as slim as it is, or they made it with these connectors and because it doesn't require more space they made it as slim. I don't really know. I would much prefer to have normal type connectors here. These do work fine though. If you actually use them, there's no real problem with them. They are just a bit inconvenient and a bit strange. Another thing that's noteworthy about the transmitter, and to show that I have to plug it in and switch it on. So you can see it has a display, not at the front like you would typically have, but it has a display on top. Now that's not a real problem. I mean, if it's standing on a tabletop, you can read it easier like that. However, if you think about mounting this inside a 19-inch rack or something like that, you can imagine this is a real problem. You basically can't do that. You also can't mount multiple on top of each other or something like that, because then you are simply not able to read the display. This thing also doesn't have any rack mounts, and the whole form factor doesn't lend itself very well to rack mounting. But with some audio gear, you can mount it on like U-type brackets or mount it with dual lock, with Velcro, stuff like that inside a rack, even if it doesn't directly support rack brackets. With this one, because of the display, you will have real problems. So it depends on your use case. It depends on if you want to use multiple of these. Just something to think about. The display itself works fine. It's well readable. No problem with that. It would have been better to have a display at the front though. Now that's enough talk for now about the transmitter. Let's have a quick look at the body pack, the receiver. This is made like the transmitter out of plastic. It's lightweight. It's not extremely solid obviously, but it's also not very flimsy. I would say build quality wise this is okay. It has a metal belt clip at the back that seems strong enough or solid enough for regular use. It has a display at the front, 3 buttons, a power button at the side, an antenna that's hard connected to the pack so it's not interchangeable, your headphone output, and the battery compartment is right here. The battery compartment, I like it. It's basically a tray that slides out. It holds strong enough, but it also comes out easy. And batteries are easily changeable. Now that's not guaranteed with body packs like this. I've had other experiences, believe me. To switch this on, you press and hold the power button, and then the display turns on and it shows the channel and your battery status. Now this power button, you have to press and hold it. So if you just quickly accidentally touch it, you won't turn it off. There is a possibility though, with the way this is located, that you could accidentally turn this off, but at least you have to press and hold. So a quick touch of that button won't accidentally turn it off. Now one other thing you might have noticed is this thing doesn't have a volume knob. So how do you adjust volume? Well, at the front you have these 3 buttons and 2 of them are a minus and plus button. And you actually adjust the headphone volume with minus and plus. You've got 10 steps and that's it. Now that for me is a real bummer, because in my opinion, and speaking from my experience from playing in bands and worship bands in live environments, you often need to be able to quickly adjust headphone volume. May it just be that the volume in the room is a bit louder or a bit quieter than during sound check, or it happens for some reason, and things like that happen, that after sound check and once a service or a concert starts, for some reason your whole in-ear mix suddenly seems off, or someone has messed with gains or something like that. You can't quickly rearrange your whole in-ear mix. And in situations like that, the most important thing you quickly need to be able to do is quickly readjust your overall volume. Now, with a system like this, if you just have buttons, what you have to do is, since you can't see what you're doing, you have to actually take this thing in your hands, look at it, and rock buttons. So you can't do it with one hand. You can't do it while continuing to look at the audience or your band members or whoever. At least it's unlikely, because you have 3 buttons and you would have to really memorize what you're doing there. And also, having 10 stages of volume, that's not exactly a system where you can really fine-tune your volume quickly. The last 2 stages, 1 and 2, are getting very quiet very suddenly. So that leaves you with essentially 8 usable stages of volume. And in my experience, that's simply not fine enough. So again, this might not be a deal breaker necessarily. Depends on your situation, of course. For me, it would make this thing harder to use. Let's put it like that. So having looked at the transmitter and the receiver, let's talk a bit about how this thing works. First of all, it operates at a frequency range of 520 to 600 megahertz. You have to be aware of that. In some countries, this frequency range is reserved for professional use, or you have to register frequencies. In Austria, where I live now, I believe you have to register for this frequency range for professional use cases. In Germany, this frequency is designated as being for professional use, but you don't have to register it. So that seems to me like a bit of a gray area. I'm not really an expert on this, and I can't speak for your use case or your country if this frequency range is usable for you. Just something to be aware of. You do have a few selectable channels in that frequency range. If we look at performance, how well this thing works, first of all, since it's analog, it's got almost no lag, or I would say 0 lag. I was also pleasantly surprised in my tests about the noise floor. There is a tiny bit of noise floor, but it was really very well usable, at least at home. I have to say I haven't been able to use this in a stage environment. I've just tested it at home. I can say though that other cheap wireless systems tend to have way more noise. It will be interesting to see how much noise I get with this in a live environment. If I experience significant problems, I will note that down in the comments of this video. You do get quite a few different operating noises though. First of all, when you switch on the receiver and the transmitter is not connected, you get a terrible loud noise. I wasn't able to reproduce it now, but once in a while you get it, and it's really loud and annoying on your ears. And also when you switch it on or off, I can quickly hold my headphones into the microphone. You do get a little clicking sound. You also have no limiter or no additional ear protection with this. That's to be expected at a price range like this though. The operating range for this thing is designated to be 50 meters. You have to have a line of sight connection basically. I did walk around a bit, and range at least doesn't seem to be a major issue. Of course, if you get obstacles or walls in between, then you start to get dropouts, but that's to be expected. Batteries last up to 8 hours according to the official documentation. Judging from my experience, I expect batteries to last maybe 5 to 6 hours realistically. It runs on regular AA batteries, and with a practical battery tray like this, they are pretty quick to exchange anyways. So from my view, batteries are probably not a problem with this. Alright, this brings me to the final conclusion of this video. So who is this system for? Is it recommendable? And this basically comes down to your budget needs and if you can live with the kind of compromises that I've detailed before. So specifically, you should be aware of the top-mounted display on the transmitter. So you need to decide, do you want to stack multiple of these? Do you want to have this in a rack? Or can you live generally with the display on top? You should be aware and ask yourself, can you live with volume buttons instead of a volume dial on top? And of course you need to be aware of the frequency range 520 to 600 megahertz if you can legally use that in your country. If none of these factors is a problem for you, then this might indeed be a good cheap option if you're on a budget. Now for Takstar, if you're watching this video and if you ever decide to make a version 2 or a follow-up product, here's what I would like. First of all, make a transmitter with regular TRS sized plugs or even XLR plugs or combo plugs. Give us a front-mounted display and probably most important, please put a volume dial on the receiver. Other than that, in some ways I was positively surprised by the system. I was positively surprised by the build quality. It is plastic, but it is solid enough. I was positively surprised by the battery tray, for example, and also the noise floor. Thank you Takstar for providing me with this review unit, and thank you for watching. If you liked this video, if you found it helpful, please remember to press that like button. Subscribe if you're interested in audio gear, in reviews like this, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.